So now I'm in this stranger's house, and then I hear someone walk up behind me, and I turn around. You know, I'm in a lazy boy, so I swivel around, and I come face to face with an elderly Asian woman. Now this story begins in and around, I think the year was about 2000, 2001, and I lived in Southern California, and I had a weekend and I was just exploring the local hi-fi scene or shops. I was hitting record stores, I was hitting, you know, like I said, hi-fi dealers, and I came across what is arguably, in my opinion, one of the best hi-fi retailers still in existence today, which is Brooks Berdan Limited. I stumbled into Brooks Berdan's store, and it was hi-fi heaven. It was audiophile hi-fi heaven. I'd never seen anything like it. And coming from Nebraska and Colorado, there simply wasn't anything like that. The main listening room had Wilson audio Maxes. I don't believe the Max 2s were out, but Maxes, Hovland tube amplifiers, preamps, Jadis tube equipment. The sky was the limit. It was one of the finest sounding rooms that I had ever heard up until that point, and remains to be one of the finest sounding rooms I'd ever heard. And then just kind of off to the right of the entrance to the main room was a long room with records, audiophile record recordings, things like that. And then in the back of that long room, and then kind of in another room off to the right, there were some used or consignment products. And it was off to that right room where Brooks had another setup which involved quad ESLs. And I had never heard quad up until that point. And so I demoed the quads pretty extensively that day because I was fascinated by them. And so it was only after the demo of the quads that I kind of came out of that experience going, man, there's something about that sound. There's something that I like about that. How much are these? You know, the dreaded. How much? And I remember Brooks telling me that they were quite expensive. I don't think he ever gave me the actual price tag because I think he knew. Obviously, I was, you know, an 18, 19-year-old kid, and like a good dealer and a good salesman. But if I liked the sound, he had something that was similar that a customer of his had traded in to go towards another pair of speakers that may be in my wheelhouse. And so I was like, oh, you know, what is it? You know, what is it? What are we talking about here? And he goes in the back, opens a closet, and asks for my help. He's like, if you'll come back here and help me out, I need some help. And he pulls out what I can only describe at first glance, because I can only see him kind of in profile, two very large pieces of wood. A door, like someone's front door, you know, side by side. He had two doors in a closet, and they were black. And he grabbed one, and I grabbed the other, and we pulled these big monolithic slabs of wood and plastic out. And then he reached down into the back of the closet and pulled out these two metal boxes that I mistakenly thought were like amplifiers. They looked like amplifiers, but like homemade amplifiers. And he's like, come with me. And so we walked these two weird door-like shapes with, you know, a see-through middle. And then he came back, grabbed the metal plates or amps or bass or whatever you wanted to call them. I didn't know at that time. We'll get to that. And he screwed it all together, set them up in the main listening room. Put them right in front, or kind of right in front of these Wilson Maxes. They're like 6-figure speakers. And he put them right in front, connected them to Hovland tube amps, the whole rig. And he let me sit with it for a minute, and he just put a record on. I'd never heard anything like that, ever. I'd never seen a speaker like this. And I had just seen quad, and then there's quad, and then there's what this was, because it was bigger than quad. It was more impressive than quad, and I could see right through it. So where was the sound coming from? It's just blowing my mind. So after about 2 songs, I turned to Brooks, who was sitting there the whole time, big shit-eating grin on his face. You had to know Brooks to understand what I'm describing. And I said, what are these? what is this? And he's like, these are MartinLogan CLS IIz. And I was like, it's like unlike anything I've ever heard before, you know? And he's like, oh yeah, no, they're impressive. They're not for everybody and they're not perfect, but you know, if you like them, they're impressive. And I said, okay, I gotta know how much. And he's like, well, they're used and I don't know how long the panels are gonna last. And so if you will give me what I gave for them on trade, they're yours. Well, how much did you give for them on trade? And he's like, I gave my customer $800 for these. And I was like, I don't have $800. I was living solely off student loan money at that point. Student loans were paying not only for school, but housing and food and. I'm like, I don't have $800. And he's like, well, tell you what, since you helped, you know, get him out and I do need the space, I'll sell them to you for $600, but that's as low as I can go. And I was like, in the back of my head, I'm like, you know, I don't really have $600 either, but I do want these loudspeakers. So I bought them. And after I wrote him a check for $600, I realized I had no way of getting them home because I drove a tiny little Ford Probe, and CLSs are very large speakers. And so he graciously put them in a van and drove them to my apartment in Pasadena, California, free of charge. Partially because Brooks is that kind of guy, and partially because I happen to live on Colorado Street and there's a really good pizza place literally steps from where I lived. I think he did it for the pizza, but I'm gonna say he did it for just to help a young budding audiophile out, and he helped me out a lot that day. But he also created a monster I've never forgiven him for, because I had those CLS IIz's for 2 years, my entire college career. And I nursed those things and made them last for 2.5 years. And like a lot of things that I enjoyed back then, I had to say goodbye to it because the girl that I was seeing at that time really didn't like them. Not because she didn't think that they sounded good. She just really did not like the look of them and how imposing they were in our apartment. So I went on AudioGone, listed them, and sold them, I want to say, for $1,000. Yeah, actually, it's probably the only time in my hi-fi journey that I've managed to make money on something that I've purchased. So yeah, I sold them, and years went by and a lot of gear went by. I started working in the industry, and you know, I'd been exposed to a lot of things. I'd even reviewed a few MartinLogan products by that point, but I just never was able to shake that feeling, that sense, that sound, that just pride of ownership that I had with those MartinLogan CLSs. And so I took a shot in the dark, and I tried to phone and find the person that bought my CLSs, and I did find them. They no longer had them. I had lost my beloved pair of CLSs in black oak forever. I wasn't going to say goodbye to the CLSs just yet. Like I was like, okay, I can't get the pair that I had. At least I can get another pair. And I lived on AudioGone during this period, almost checking it daily, AudioGone and eBay. And I came across a few listings where it was just like, yeah, you know, for $800, basically you get frames. And it just didn't feel right. And then I got an email from a reader. And this was back when I was the managing editor of a publication. I got like an email, and the email said, I know of a place that has not one but 2 pair of MartinLogan CLSs, and he is a dealer. And I call him up, and I understand he got CLSs, and I'd like to take a look at them. And he's like, sure, absolutely. Let's do it on this day at this time. Here's the address. And it was kind of weird because it was like, the meeting was clearly not in, the address was clearly a residential area, and the meeting time was like right at lunch, which for a dealer, it's like, wouldn't you want to take your lunch break? But anyway, I was just like, all right. So I drove into this neighborhood. I think it was like a Tuesday or something. So I drove into this neighborhood at precisely noon, and I pull up in front of a house, and I'm sitting there going, this can't be the right spot. And I go up to the door, knock on the door, no one answers. No one. There's no one there. And then shortly after I arrived, this van, like Chrysler minivan, whatever it is, comes screaming up into the driveway. And this very well-dressed Asian gentleman jumps out. Oh, I'm sorry, I'm late. I got stuck in traffic. It's LA, people get stuck in traffic. And, he proceeds to open the door and just walk right inside, but doesn't like invite me in. In fact, he even closes the door in front of me after acknowledging like, oh, I'm so sorry, I'm late, walks right past me, closes the door, and leaves me on his front steps. So I knock on the door again, and sure enough, within 15 seconds, he opens it. Hey, hello, welcome. My name is so-and-so, and welcome to my shop. Your shop? This is a house, man. And I walk in, and I walk through a kitchen, I walk through a dining room, and I come to a living room where there are a few sofas, a lot of family portraits and pictures, and CLSIIz right there, front and center, hooked up to an entire stack of Rogue audio components. Anyway, I sit down in a lazy boy recliner, and he's like, what do you want to listen to? And then I tell him what I want to listen to. And the whole time, like, he's like turning on equipment, and I'm noticing like he's dressed for another job. Like, this is his lunch break. He's taking his lunch break to come back to his house in order to let me demo these loudspeakers. And I'm like, I'm hearing noises elsewhere in the house. I don't know if any of you guys have seen the movie Zodiac, but there's a scene where Jake Gyllenhaal is in the basement of this house, and he's going through these old movie posters with this really creepy dude, and he's hearing sounds emanating from elsewhere in the house. Well, that was happening with me. Like, he's turning on electronics and finding a CD for me to listen to these speakers, and I'm hearing like people walking around, and I'm hearing someone in the kitchen, and I'm like, we're not alone, and I'm in a stranger's house to demo speakers. What am I doing? Like, there's loving a loudspeaker and being in love with a particular loudspeaker, and then there's being stupid, and I might be being stupid. He puts the CD on, hits play, the music starts, and I start to forget about what else might be happening around me, and I start focusing on the loudspeakers themselves. And the sound is admittedly not great. And then he just leaves the room. I don't know where he goes. He just leaves. So now I'm in this stranger's house listening to MartinLogan CLSs that look immaculate but sound like hot garbage. And then I hear someone walk up behind me, and I turn around. I'm in a lazy boy, so I swivel around, and I come face to face with an elderly Asian woman. And I'm seated, she's standing, we're about the same height, and I'm like, hello, that's not what you expect to see. Definitely not something I've ever had to deal with during the speaker demo. And she just kind of looks at me, and I realize that I'm in her chair. So I get up, she sits in the chair that I was sitting in, and I move to the couch, which is, off axis, off to the side, and I now realize that I am sitting in a living room with an elderly Asian woman who is eating her lunch. I'm on her sofa listening to a busted pair of MartinLogans, and I don't know where the gentleman who let me in, I don't know where he is. And I also don't know what's happening. And so the two of us just sit in this room for like 3 songs. I don't know, do I look at her? Do I talk to her? I don't know what to do. And then come the cats. All the cats. I don't know where they came from. I don't know who let them in. But suddenly there's now an elderly Asian woman, a busted pair of MartinLogans, and a half dozen cats. And me in a living room with no idea what's going on. And so now, after the cats have used me as a jungle gym and have taken their handouts from Grandma, let's call her Grandma, the gentleman returns wearing completely different clothing, by the way. Completely different clothing. Like he took a shower. Like left me in his house with Grandma and 6 cats and then left and went and took a shower. And he comes back and he's like, so what do you think? And I'm sitting there going, what do I think? I'm thinking you're crazy. I said, well, one of your panels is clearly bad. So I'm really just buying frames at this point because nothing about this speaker is usable, but the frames are in really great shape and the electronics in the back do look to be in good nick. So I'm interested. I'm a buyer. So I opened it, $500. And in the back of my head, I was willing to go up to about 1,000. And he hit me at 2,500 bones. And I'm like, you crazy. Like that, no, not for used, busted MartinLogans, no. And he's like, well, I have another pair that's not in as good a shape that maybe I'll be willing to do a better deal on. And so we get up, we go down his hallway. I can see into his bedroom where, yes, he did clearly change because his clothes that he met me in are now all over the floor. And we go into his master closet, which is full of boxes, clothes, and MartinLogan everything. Like when he says, oh, I have another pair. No. He has like 4 pair. Just leaning up against the wall. Like just leaning up against the wall like it ain't no thing. We are literally like pulling back the MartinLogans from the wall like you go through a record bin. And he's like, I'll sell you this pair for $1,200. This pair looks like the door from The Shining. Like it is beat to shit. And I'm just flustered and flabbergasted by the whole thing. I'm just gonna go. He's like, cool. All right, well, have a nice time or have a nice day. And then he turns around and he walks in the other direction. So I'm standing in the middle of a room in his house and he just leaves me again, leaves me to find my own way out. So I walk back through the living room, past Grandma, wave goodbye to Grandma, wave goodbye to all the cats, and show myself to the front door, proceed to get in my car and drive away as fast as humanly possible. And that has to be the single weirdest hi-fi experience that I have ever had. The single weirdest MartinLogan story I have, and I have more than that one. But yeah, it's one of those things where it's like, as the years have gone by, and every time I see a pair of MartinLogans come up on AudioGone or eBay, mostly eBay, I can't help but think of that. Like that story is forever, like it's in there. Like that happened to me, all because of a loudspeaker, all because I have this love affair with a loudspeaker that was unknowingly thrust upon me by a really, really great friend and dealer in Brooks Berdan. May he rest in peace. So that's it. That's all I got. Please do, if you liked this video, please do like and subscribe. Give it a thumbs up. And remember, the only person that has to like the sound of your system is you. So happy listening, everybody. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you on the next video. Bye.